What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution to someone's problem. I'm also a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications, and I am jacked tonight. I am jacked for so many reasons, but the most important reason is that we have two epic ladies in a good way here on the Dr. Vibe show, because it's the home of epic conversations and I'm the host of epic conversations, and we have 3 countries on live at the same time tonight. That is just, but only ladies like this can help me make this happen. So for those who don't know, I've done over 2,000 online conversations over the last 10 years, and this is one I know I'm not already going to forget. I'm not going to forget this one already. So let's get right to it. Little background, a few weeks ago, unless you have your head in the sand, there was a gentleman named Stephon Clark who was killed, an unarmed black young man killed by the police. We found out that he was not carrying any arms, but some interesting stories started to happen after the fact. Some people started to look at his timeline on Twitter, and there were some not too kind things that Mr. Clark had to say about black women. And also not too kind things his significant other, who he's had 2 kids with, had to say about black women. And there was some black women saying, you know what, I can't mourn over Stephon Clark because he never liked us. So I said to myself, you know, it's time to have this conversation. Who are black women's friends? Because I hear a number of black women saying they're all on their own. Black men don't like them. Other women don't like them. Other men don't like them, etc. So I said, let me get 2 outstanding black women on the Dr. Vibe show tonight to let's just hear what's going on. So I'm going to do it first because I've known Dr. Tachi a little bit longer, much longer, in fact. To introduce her, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Dr. Tachi is all things media, tech, and culture, and pop culture. You can catch her 6 o'clock every Wednesday, and she did one tonight, Eastern Time, on her outstanding broadcast called Mediascope, which broadcasts live on YouTube and Periscope. And I think she still does a little warm-up show, 5 p.m. on Instagram Live. I could spend time introducing her, but you know what? Go to the Dr. Vibe show. I've done enough epic conversations with her. And if you don't know why I have her on, stay on and find out. Dr. Tachi, how you doing?
I'm fantastic, sir. And you?
Blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles and
a solution to someone's problems.
You got it. You got it. And I'm excited to have your perspective on here. I know it's going to bring nothing but added value to an important topic. Now, down south, usually down south, the furthest I go is Tachi. But I'm going way down south with our other friend here.
Yeah.
Lia Miller, Lia, the world traveler live from Bolivia.
Yes.
I've had her on the conversation many a time. Love having her on. How are we doing this weekend? This night. That's how excited I'm.
I'm ready for the weekend. So you're reading my mind. But I'm doing wonderful. I'm also blessed and highly favored, and ready to have this great epic conversation with you.
Fantastic. So let's get it going right now, ladies. When I asked you to be part of this conversation, what were your first thoughts?
Good question. I wasn't quite sure what to think because I usually I try not to have expectations because you do such a good job of asking questions and setting the tone. So I was just along for the ride because it was Dr. Vibe.
You are too kind.
I had a different idea because we had talked a little bit on the margins of our last chat about Stephon Clark specifically. So I kind of had a feeling it would be sort of about, these perceptions that, black women are kind of on their own. And, what do we think about that? And is that true?
Okay. Well, let me cycle back in your younger years. And I still say you're young because there's 2 things I really don't go into with ladies' age and weight. So that's as much as I'm going to go. Yeah, going to go. When growing up, did you have close women relationships growing up?
I did, yes. I valued my girlfriends. I mean, when you're small, all you can play with and be around is girls anyway, because the whole boy thing was not allowed. So you learn to value the relationships of your close girlfriends. So absolutely.
Okay.
And I would say the same for me. My closest friends in childhood are still some of my closest friends today in adulthood. And I do have male friends and some very good, dear male friends, but I think that my most meaningful relationships that I had as a child were with my girlfriends, my childhood female friends. A lot for the reasons that Dr. Tachi already said, but also because we're in the same place going through the same things. And even though little boys experience some of the same things that little girls do, there are marked differences in our experiences growing up. And so I feel like the relatability in some ways just isn't there.
Okay. Did either of you, while younger, have any good male friends?
Yeah, I went to, this is the funny thing, my best friend was actually a boy when I was little, Tony House, because the both of us were nerds and we loved nerd culture. Star Wars was one of our favorite things, and I remember I was supposed to go to his house so we could play, and I had brought the chocolate foil wrapped Easter eggs for him and for me so we could share. And I was about to throw mine away, and he said, "Wait, don't throw it away. We can use it to build C-3PO." I said, "Brilliant." So, I probably, not that I wouldn't, but especially back then, there was a real division of quote unquote labor in terms of what girls were supposed to like and what boys were supposed to like. Most little girls did not like things like Star Wars, etc. So the fact that I was able to bond with him over that was something special. So yeah, I did have some close male friends when I was younger.
Leah?
And yes, the same for me. I mean, we didn't necessarily bond over Star Wars and C-3PO, though I also am a fan of those things. But I was a big soccer player as a little girl, and I was really good as a kid. So I was often the one girl that was allowed to play with the boys. And it kind of made me cool or equal in their eyes when I'm out on the, soccer field beating them. And so they had to accept me. And so, I'm out there outrunning them, scoring on them, doing all that great stuff. And even in high school, one of my dearest friends, who we've kind of grown apart as adults, but it's mostly just because of life circumstances, but not out of a lack of love. But in high school, one of my closest friends was a boy. And we were totally platonic, totally friends. There was never any kind of other feelings as a teen. But he just was he was a good friend to me. He was someone who I felt like he could see me and I saw him. And we had a real friendship based on those things.
As both of you have gone through your journey from younger days to still young days.
Thank you.
Do you feel that your friends are just women of color, and they're your posse, and you don't see the support from others such as black men, other women, etc.? Has that been a thing that's been in your mind over the years?
Personally, you mean, or just in a general way?
I would say whatever way. Okay, let's talk professionally first.
Okay.
Let's talk professionally first, because if we get to personal, that may get fun. But let's talk professionally first.
So if you're talking about professionally, it's difficult and it's hard to say, because I've seen, I think it really depends on your field and where you are and who you're with and the tribe that you create around you. Because I think that anyone can be a great ally and anyone can be a great support. But sometimes for women of color, we don't often see that support, especially when I'm in higher ed, obviously. And yeah, higher ed, regardless of how they like to perpetrate that they're so free and open and the marketplace of ideas and so on and so forth, it's only free and open for certain people. And they often refuse to acknowledge that. And this is why they spend all this money on diversity initiatives. And they always have a diversity officer who always happens to be black for some reason. And, that type of thing. Just going through the motions of trying to, quote unquote, diversify so people will stop talking about it and people will shut up. And so in higher ed, in the university setting, you really do feel like you really are like hashtag side-eyers. You really are like that, because there is and I know you're familiar with this. There is that whole, you don't know. There's this covert discrimination, and this covert, even if it's not intentional, the organizational structure and the societal structures have made it endemic. And so even if you don't mean to do that, even if you're the most well-meaning non-melanated person, sometimes it comes through when something happens for you and it doesn't happen for them. When you know, and that's not everybody and not in all cases. I'm not making a blanket statement, but I've seen it enough to know. So professionally, yeah, you do sometimes feel like you're by yourself, but you know, that's never stopped me from kicking down the door and sitting down at the table. If I'm not supposed to be there, yeah, too bad. I just sit down.
Yes.
Lia?
For me, it's very similar. I'm surprised. It sounds like she was describing my workplace in many ways, even though, you know, she's in higher ed and I'm in foreign policy and I represent, you know, the United States government abroad. So right there, you already know that I'm in the minority because my line of work has historically been male, it's historically been white, it's historically been upper class and middle class, upper middle class. So I'm pretty much the opposite of all of those things. So I'm already a minority among minorities within my line of work. And then add to the fact that I'm overseas, so I'm not even in a country that has the luxury of diversity in the sense that the United States and Canada and other nations like that have. Bolivia is very homogenous in that sense. It's diverse within itself, but in terms of like racial diversity, it's not as diverse as other places. And so I do stick out here. And I find that professionally, it's kind of a mixed bag in the sense that because I'm overseas, I'm automatically mixed in with a lot of other people of different ethnic origin and background. But in terms of my colleagues in the office, I'm still in the minority. And I found, and it's kind of like being back in high school again, that, you know, like attracts like. So when I see another person of color walking through the halls, I'm immediately like running up to them like, hey, who are you? Are you here? Are you? And we all become friends and we have our little tribe within a large, you know, inside the bubble, the microcosm of the mission. And so in this case, and this has actually been a rare case, this is my 4th embassy that I worked in. And for the first time in my career, we actually had a critical mass of people of color. And so that people would often get together to kind of be there for one another as a support system and a support network, because socially we get to see each other, but we're a mixed group within ourselves. So there's plenty of young singles, there's married couples with kids, there's some people that are close to retirement. So we're not necessarily in the same place in life, but because we're the same, we hang out, you know, on occasions just to sort of be amongst each other and be with one another. But the majority of my colleagues are white, and many of them are wonderful and many of them are not. And just like Dr. Tachi said, if I'm not supposed to be at the table, nobody told me. I'm right there at the table, commanding the table and getting the respect that I deserve, and articulating myself in a way that no one can deny me a seat at the table. And my hope is that I'm going to pave the way for females like me coming behind me so they don't feel any of that trepidation that I used to feel when I would walk into a room and be the only female, let alone the only female of color. Thankfully, more and more that's changing. And like Dr. Tachi said, in higher ed, there's a lot of diversity initiatives, social inclusion programs across the federal government, probably on state and local levels as well, to bring more non-traditional, which means non-white boy or non-white male people into the workplace.
Okay.
Could I chime in just for a moment?
Absolutely. So you know how I roll.
So Lia, what you're talking about is it's supposed to show that there's not much difference in workplaces across the board. It doesn't matter whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, governmental, NGO. It doesn't matter. There are same struggles. It's the same story for women of color all over. But what you said hit me particularly because when I was in the master's program, I used to work at the IFC, which was part of the World Bank Group. So exactly what you were talking about, I saw. The division directors were all white men, usually all white Western European men. And I obviously was not a division director. So
exactly
what you're talking about is not lost because I saw it firsthand as well.
Yeah, I do want to say at least this much. I think that the State Department in particular has really taken this on board in terms of, you know, the diplomatic corps, what I do, we're supposed to reflect American society. And American society is not only white males. So I appreciate the things that they're doing to try to bring in not diversity only in a racial and ethnic sense, diversity in terms of geography. Historically, there's a lot of people coming in from the coasts. So now they're focusing on getting people from Middle America so that a range of perspectives, a range of experiences, a range of political ideologies, a range of life circumstances are present in the diplomatic corps. So when we really are out in the world, we truly do reflect the face or multi-faces of America. And I think that there's a long way to go. And of course, there's always room for improvement. Nothing is perfect, but I really do feel that the State Department has taken it on board, and they have been really working consciously year after year after year to bring in more people who look like me.
Wonderful. Great news to hear. But before we go any further, before we go any further, just shout out MC Curtis. Thank you for stopping by. MC Curtis is Tatiana's producer on Mediascope, so he's dropped down, and a lady named Leah Anderson has dropped by. So I don't know that name, but thank you for stopping by. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free.
Yes.
I'll share them to both our epic ladies here. I want to ask you, during your journey, have you had some true supporters that were not women of color?
Who do you want to start?
Hey, you know what? Whoever goes first, we do conversations. I don't go, oh, you got to, unless you're totally quiet, then I'll bring one of you in. But I don't think we'll have any challenges getting you guys to share content. So go whoever.
No, you won't. You go ahead. I'll just follow you.
Okay. Absolutely. I'm thinking back to one of the universities I worked at, and whereas, there were some faculty, the majority of the faculty were great, but then there were some oafs that I was like, yeah, I can do without you. But that's at every workplace. But the thing that I really valued was that I always had the backing of our division director and the dean, both who, now that they were not black, but the dean was Jewish and the division director was of Hispanic descent. So I had that backing from them. And I remember walking, because I was constantly on university committees, always doing something. And so my name would pop up often. And one of the assistants in the dean's office always said, hey, I saw you're on such and such committee. And she came to me and she came in close, she said, he tells the other faculty no all the time. You're the only one that he always says yes to. So I knew from that point, and I noticed, I was like, he never said no. Sometimes he's like, well, can we find another way to do this? He would not tell me no. So that let me know that he had my back regardless of whatever. And, I saw that throughout the time that I was there.
Yeah, for me, I would say yes. Also, I'm thinking back to my early college years where I studied social work and African American studies as an undergrad. And one of my favorite people in life, and is still one of my favorite people, was the dean of the School of Social Work, who was an African American male. And he was a huge mentor and a guide to me during my early college years. And even after I graduated, he kind of allowed me to bounce things off of him, send him resumes to help me edit them, or put in a good word for me, offer me a letter of recommendation, put in a call for me if I was looking to get an internship or fellowship or whatever the case. And we're in touch to this day. And I'm a grown woman with kids of my own, but he's still someone who will always be an important figure in my life. And fast forward to the present, apart from my, my sister girl network, I do have mentors that run the gamut. I have, mentors that are white females, white males, non-white and black, Latinos, Asians, because the beauty of my work is that we really are kind of the Rainbow Coalition because we're international. So, I'm constantly interacting with people from different countries, different nationalities, different backgrounds, and many of them have seen something in me that they feel like they can help foster or develop me or push me to, go further in my own path. And they're not always black people.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. I have a follow-up to that, but I'm going to always serve my audience first. MC Curtis is saying, when black women get in top positions, are they hiring other sisters?
Depends on the black woman. So, because I feel like there's two schools of thought on this. This is my take. I feel like there is the black woman who's looking out for her own, because she's going to create her own sister girl network to combat the white boy network. But then there's the other type that feels like I made it here and I need to be the only one here, because she may see another black woman there as more competitive or more competition for her than some other demographic. And I've experienced working with both of those women. I'm happy to say, I think in the majority of cases, the other Black women that I've worked with who are at senior levels do look back, they do reach, and they pull us forward with them. And I'm grateful for that. But I've also bumped into the other kind, and that is not fun.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. The other kind, again, I can do without. And what we have to remember is that simply because someone else may look like you, everybody who is folk is not folk.
Exactly.
So, so that's one thing that you have to remember. I feel that, personally, when I get to positions where I'm able to help other Black women, I feel a responsibility to try, not just other Black women, but other Black people, especially, people of color in general, but particularly Black people. I feel that I have that responsibility because it was made so difficult for so long for us, and it's still made difficult for so long for so many of us, that if I get into a point where I can help you, I like to, but you can only help people who want to be helped. So there's that end of it too. So there's the end of the women who really want to help other Black women succeed. There's the end of people like, well, there's no more room for anybody else but me, so I guess that's it. And then, you've also got the people being helped. There are those who are appreciative of the help, other women that are appreciative of the help, and other women who are skeptical of the help, or don't want the help, or don't appreciate the help. Or don't, yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and I would like to add one thing too, that
Sure.
I feel like my personal philosophy is that people literally died for me to have the opportunity that I have to work where I work, to have the opportunities that I have. So I feel like I have no choice but to help others get to where I am and get ahead of me. So I feel like I often probably overextend myself in being a mentor and doing all the things that my mentors have done for me. And I don't discriminate. Of course, I'm going to look out for my own, because I feel like we have to. That's the whole point. Everybody else has had their networks for years, and we need to establish our own. But I also help anybody who needs my help, because I don't discriminate in that way, because I've been helped by a wide variety of people. Help.
She's freezing on us.
Black women.
Okay.
Because I still feel like, in many ways, we're still the last person to get in the door, the last person to get an opportunity, the first person to be stereotyped, and the first person to be treated like lesser than, because of our gender, number one, but also because of our race. So I always keep a special eye out for Black women.
Okay. And if I could add really quickly, I think that is also why it's invaluable to be a part of groups that are oriented towards Black women, or that are for Black women, because you have that automatic network. I like being a part of women's groups because I like social service and etc. So I happen to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta. That's it. Oh my goodness! Oh, what's up, sir?
No. Now I know I love you. See?
I know.
I like you from the beginning, and now I know why.
Oh.
See what you did, Dr. Vibe. See what you done did.
Now we got to have another conversation about Greek life.
Yes. Yes. So then you totally identify. There are groups that we have, whether formal or informal, where it's like, hey, this came up, this position at my job. If you have this, and this, please let me know. Wow. And I've seen it in a myriad of things on our discussion boards, etc. So it's very helpful. Even if this is why I don't buy the fact where people are like, oh, I don't get along with women. I don't understand. You don't get along with yourself. That's absolute rubbish. So I think that you need to find some way. And this is not for everybody. And not everybody is an organization person. But if you are, I think it is invaluable to be a part of some of these women's organizations, because that's your first step in getting to the next step, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And I would co-sign that, obviously, for reasons we already just established, but also because, part of the reason why I joined Delta Sigma Theta, beyond the sisterhood aspect of it, and beyond the fact that I want to be surrounded and immersed in Blackness and Black culture and my sister, is for the professional networking. I feel like you have to go and play to your base. Someone who looks like you is more likely to hire you. That's what the old boys network is. It isn't necessarily that it's completely discriminatory, though it is, but it's also because they are going to hire who they know and who is familiar to them. And so we need to do the same things. And I think that Dr. Tachi is exactly right when she says that we should join women's organizations or professional associations that can help you establish that base and broaden your network to help you get to that next step. And then when you get there, you turn around and you bring somebody back up there with you. Mm-hmm. It's a two-way street. So that's what I think more people should consider doing too. Even if they're introverted and not necessarily organizational person, there's enough benefit to being in it. Even if you're a quiet member who kind of just passively watches, the information that you can gain in the networks and people you will meet is invaluable.
Absolutely.
Wow. I just had another great special moment having this conversation, and people who are watching this live on the replay, I had no idea that they were a member of the same fraternity. So yes. I will add this to memorable, epic conversations when people ask me, oh, so what was a special moment you had on your conversation? Well, this will be another one that I can mention, saying 2 ladies living in 2 different countries, member of the same fraternity.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why I say I'm blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Thank you so much. Now, getting back to the audience, Curtis Brooks is loving what you ladies are sharing. She's saying, great point, Leah. Absolutely, Tachi. Lena Anderson says SGR Hope.
Oh, Sigma Gamma Rho.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay, good. See, it's still Greek, so she's still my sister.
NPHC love, National Pan-Hellenic Council love. Yeah.
Exactly.
So maybe when I put the replay out, I'll just call frat night. Ladies frat, black ladies frat night.
Or
all right?
sorority night.
Sorority.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorority. I was not part of one, so forgive me. I'll get on base. I'll
That's
get on
right.
base. And
we understand. That's why we just let it slide twice. But I was like, the third time I just have to help you out.
All right. Respect. Thanks everyone for watching live. A lot of people are watching live, and Curtis and Lena are giving great comments and questions. So Curtis is on the move. So he has another question for both of you, asking, do you feel that black women have taken on the white women's fight and not focus on the issues concerning black women? Ooh.
I don't know. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Leah.
Okay, I was going to just say that in some respects, yes, that's the case, but in other respects, no. I've seen like 2 ways that this has played out. One where black women have joined white feminists and white female movements because they are fighting for things like equal pay, which benefits all women. But I also see other black women who have rejected white feminism and sort of white female movements because they feel like they don't include the black experience. So I've seen kind of a division in terms of my sisters who are pushing for rights for females. Some of them just kind of go along with it because I think there is strength in numbers, and you have a larger demographic of people who are fighting for the same thing, advocating for the same thing, and that can be effective. But I also understand why some wouldn't want to do that, because I do think there are some absences and there are some gaps of the white feminist movement that don't necessarily take into consideration the perspective of females of color, and the fact that, yes, while we are all sort of suffering the same discrimination as females, there's other layers related to it because we're black or we're of a minority. And so I've seen it happen in those 2 directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I 100% agree with Leah. I think that when we talk about banding together, yes, there is strength in numbers, but and this is just for me, my experience, I have not counted in your number. And I understand using standpoint theory, you can only look at things from your particular standpoint. You don't have my experience. So not that I'm not expecting you to fight for me, but I am not surprised when you don't fight for me, because my experience is not your experience. Therefore, I have to fight for myself and don't have time to be bothered with the collective, since it doesn't include my agenda. So generally, I tend not to band with, and it's interesting because I have some really good friends that we were all faculty members together that are heavy duty feminists. And I'm like, oh, well, good. Enjoy your march. I'm not coming because it's not going to address, at the end of the day, tomorrow, I'm still going to have even though you may make, if you're making 60 cents on the dollar, I'm probably making 40. So we have particular problems and particular issues that we need to address as black women before we can really band together effectively with anybody else. Because you either don't realize what our issues are, or you don't care what our issues are. It could be one of the other, or you don't know how to solve the issues, and that's understandable. So,
all right, with black women ascending in the workplace, are either of you seeing more competition in a not so good way between black women in the workplace?
Go ahead, Leah.
Okay, in my case, It really depends, because in the federal government, because everything is sort of by grade, and it's not really a merit-based, system. We don't have a meritocracy. It's more of like an evaluation, and you have to sit at certain ranks for X amount of years before you can move up. Those types of competitions are a little bit different when it comes to government service, but where the competition comes in is if you're looking at, let's say I'm in Bolivia now, and let's say I want to go to Paris next, and everybody wants to go to Paris. I'm going to be competing against other Black females for that one job that I want. So there's always competition in that sense, but I don't see it necessarily as specifically pitting me against other Black women. It's pitting me against anybody who wants that position, and I just have to come out the victor. But I have seen more and more of competition in general, just because there's a scarcity of opportunities at the top. Like, I think this is probably the same in most workplaces, but in the State Department, it's like a pyramid, like the Deltas.
Yes.
But, we have, more people at the bottom and less places for us to go. So the level of competition gets fiercer and fiercer and fiercer and more difficult and more challenging and more stressful the higher you go. So that, to me, isn't necessarily race or gender specific. That's just the nature of the beast for that type of work.
All right.
And for the university, so I'm counting the university and I'm counting higher ed, but I'm also counting what I do with live streaming and journalism and all of that. So those are, if I'm talking about the university in terms of being pit against each other, not really, you don't see that. And part of the problem is because you might be one of two Black faculty members if you are at a quote unquote PWI. If you happen to be teaching at an HBCU or a place that, never mind another diverse place, because they still tend to have largely white faculty members. But at an HBCU, and I have been a faculty member at an HBCU, I haven't experienced that type of thing. And I think it's because of the nature of academia. Like you said, it's a whole meritocracy thing. And then there are so few positions. Let me put this a different way. It may start to happen. You may start to see it now because, in my opinion, and I'm sorry for anybody who's watching who gets offended, but I don't care. There are too many PhDs. There are too many superfluous PhDs. Every single university has started a PhD program on the philosophy of nothing, and you can get your PhD in 3 months on the philosophy of nothing. And we have fallen for it, especially Black women. Hook, line, and sinker. We're right now the most educated group in America, but boy, are we paying for it because we're in debt and everything, because we've been told and fed this dream of you need to get as much education as you can, and that's not necessarily the case. That's not what we're talking about.
No, that's okay. No, but I think it's relevant. It's relevant.
Right.
That's basically the thing with academe. So we may start to see that happen because we've got a flooded market of PhDs where now fewer people, or so many people are competing for jobs that were already scarce. So whereas before you could come out of a PhD program and be assured of somewhat of working somewhere, even if it was in Iowa, someplace you didn't necessarily want to be initially, you could find a job somewhere. Now, the full-time tenure track jobs of old are harder and harder to come by. And now, because we have too many people competing for the jobs, because universities are just trying to make money off of degree programs, now we've got the problem. So now we may start to see a little bit of competition and pitting against each other. But my experience in academe has not been that.
Excellent. Well, and Lena Anderson is saying, and not enough jobs and mentorship. And then she's saying, speak on it. So you just spoke on it. Big time.
Yeah.
Curtis Brooks, he should be sitting beside me or actually on this live stream, has another question for both of you. Do you think it's because Black women not feeling qualified?
In terms of the competition or lack of competition? That's
a good question. Curtis, if you can follow up and just sort of break that conversation piece down a little bit more, we will get back to it.
Sure, but I can say this.
Go ahead.
I can say this, that I think it's more of a female thing than it is a Black female thing, that we feel that we are doing this thing called imposter syndrome, where we never feel good enough, we never feel educated enough, we never feel qualified enough, we never feel we have enough experience, so we hold ourselves back from taking opportunities that our white male counterparts would jump on just because they have enough confidence to feel like, I may not have a master's, I might only have a bachelor's degree, or I've only worked 2 years, even though it's asking for 5, but I'm still going to put my hat in the ring because they just think that they'll be competitive. Whereas women, I think if we don't meet every single requirement, we put ourselves out of the running for anything. Whereas men, I think they don't have that hiccup, they don't have that hang up. They're just like, I want this job and I'm going to go for it. And so I think that seems to me be less of a black female thing and more of just a female thing, where we just want to be perfect and meet every single requirement. And if we don't even put our hat in the ring. That's what I see.
Absolutely. And there's documented proof. There are studies that show that women in general will not apply for jobs if they don't meet every single one of the criteria. Whereas men, it could call for a PhD. They haven't graduated from high school and they will still apply for it. But I think delusional, perhaps. But I think because this system has been built up around the good of men, they feel empowered and comfortable enough to do so, whereas we don't. So I think it's a societal rearing as well. It didn't just come from nowhere. Society said that if you're a man, you should be able to do anything. You should be able to fly with no wings. We're not taught that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Lena Anderson says, yes, that pressure to run when others can walk and sluggishly walk. And Curtis Brooks says yes, and Lena says yes, they are. Now, and I'm going to start with Tachi on this. When you say men, are you meaning men in general, or more specifically, men that are white?
Men in general. Men in general, because this is not just a trait that non-melanated men, that's what I call white men, non-melanated men exhibit.
Go, Tachi. Go, Tachi.
That is not just a trait that they exhibit. Black men exhibit this too. I think men in general exhibit it, but I think it's paid attention to more and more empowered in white men. So black men don't have all the opportunities that, and other men of color for that matter, don't in general have all the opportunities that white men have. Simply because of history, right? So even if you're not a white man, you're still a man, and you see this kind of camaraderie sometimes and coming together over menship, right, or manhood that kind of excludes the female voice, regardless of ethnicity.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. She said what I think.
Yeah, well, and that's concerning. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, there's still the certain individual that's on top. You may think that you're hanging with them a lot of the time, but they still have the last say.
Exactly.
So does that mean presently, when it comes to the workplace, there's a little bit of friction or lack of communication between men of color and women of color, which leads to be leading women, I'm not saying every, but the many women of color say, you know what, we got nobody, we can't count on them. They don't got our backs. Now, you can not only use your own example if it's true or not, but if you heard other women of color speak to that subject.
I've heard women of color speak to being undermined by men. Like if they're in a position of authority, and the men don't feel like she's a competent leader for no other reason than she's a female. I've heard of many women grumbling about feeling like they're being undermined, or they're having to constantly repeat themselves instead of just giving the marching orders and having their staff go and do the work. They're having to constantly negotiate and try to placate and try to do all these other things that a male manager never has to deal with. The male manager will say jump, people will jump and do what they're supposed to do. They may not like it, but they're not going to rebel against it. But when it's a female, in some cases, not every case, she'll say the same command, same directive, and she'll get all kinds of hell for it. And she just is, I feel like sometimes the job of a female manager is much more difficult because you're not seen really as an authoritative figure, even though you're in a position of authority. And it goes back to what Dr. Tachi was saying before about males being reared to think that they are the leaders and that women are subservient to them to varying degrees. And this is across race. And I still think that's something that is pervasive, and women face it all the time. I feel like what ends up happening, and this is one of the stereotypes that we can get into that goes back to the beginning of the conversation, is that when it comes to a black female who has been told that she has to be a strong black female, which in itself has other connotations because it means we can't be vulnerable or weak or anything, we end up not taking any of that type of response from our staffs, and so we become harder. So then we fall into the stereotype of the black bitch or the black angry woman and all these other things. And so it kind of is like a spinning ball of stereotypes that are unnecessary, but it's all based on society and the way that we've moved forward as a nation since the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So to give an example from the Academy, there are fictional examples and real examples. Look at any HBCU, which for people who may not know, historically black college and university, that is headed by a black woman, and go back and see the hell that she endures by some male members of not just male members in general, but members of the board of directors or whatever the case may be, the board of trustees, simply because she is female. So a great fictional, but really not fictional example, if you've ever watched the show The Quad on BET, which unfortunately has been canceled after this is its last season. It deals with a woman who is the president of a fictional historically black college, was something GAMU. So this is supposed to. Anika Noni Rose went to FAMU, so I'm guessing that's where it came from. So she's the president of this fictional college, and at every turn she is having to defend her decisions. She is having to fend off people thinking she's incompetent. She's second guessing decisions sometimes because of this. And this is real. This has been the experiences of many female faculty members, but female faculty members in administration. It's okay, though, if you work in human resources management, which is where often we are, or if you work in diversity. Hey, those are your areas. But now that you want to be the president of a university, now we have a problem. So it's very real when it comes to the Academy in terms of being undermined by men, being thought. And then another thing with this, we have to look at the role that religion and spirituality plays, because often these HBCUs were founded by the Methodist Church, or a lot of them are church-based. And what are we told, or what are we taught in the black church? That the man is the head and the man is the lead. And so it's very difficult for you to separate your school politics from your religious politics if they're one and the same.
Wow. Yep. Leah, you want to add to this? And the people are coming into this conversation like crazy. Okay.
That's what we want.
That's good. That's good.
You got superstars on. You're dropping knowledge bombs. You want to add anything to that, Leah?
Sure. Yeah. What I'd like to add is just that, of course, I think we're going to always be having a love fest because I agree with everything that she said. But I also think that there's there's a duality in everything, because I feel like, just like Dr. Tachi said, in the Bible teaches that the man is the head of the household. And so that belief kind of goes into every aspect of life. But there's also females that believe the same thing. Yes. So they will also then teach their daughters and teach their sisters to be subservient to men and not to raise their hand and not to take those positions and be in a supportive role instead of being in the lead role. So you're getting those stereotypes reinforced not only through general society and through masculinity paradigms, but you're also getting it from your own sisters, your mothers, your cousins, your grandmas, your aunties are telling you, no, don't speak back to him, girl. Just do what he says. He could be dead wrong, but you don't want to ruffle any feathers. Let him think he's doing the right thing, and then go ahead and do the right thing without him knowing. But then you never get the credit for that. You never get to show that you have a mind, that you can make a decision, that you cannot agree and be correct. It's just very difficult, and I'm really struggling with how to overcome that. I'm doing things differently with my children, and I have a boy and I have a girl. So I don't treat them differently. I'm pretty egalitarian when it comes to that, and I'm hoping that I can start to break those cycles. And I'm not saying anything to be anti-religious, but I don't believe in this day and age that some of those lessons and those paradigms apply. Wow. Especially since Dr. Tachi said earlier, black females are the most highly educated demographic in all the United States. Why in God's name would I spend all this money and all this time getting all this education to go and be somebody's secretary? Or go and not try to go to the farthest extent that I can in my own career? regardless of whether or not people perceive me as being capable or trust my decisions or my competence because of my gender and my race, I'm still not going to allow those things to stop me from knowing what I can do and what I'm capable of. And that's the message I want Black females in particular, Black people in general, to get.
Wow. Woo! Preach! Lena said to both of you, preach, with 3 exclamation points. Preach.
Thank you.
And there's a gentleman, I don't know if you know this gentleman, Leah, Gonzalo Fortune.
Oh, yes. Hi, Gonzi.
Yeah,
he's saying, one of my colleagues here. He's one of my good friends here in Bolivia.
Yeah, he's shouting out, way to go, Leah.
Aw, thanks, Gonzalo. I'll give you a hug tomorrow in the office.
There you go. Excellent.
He's my tennis partner.
Ah, okay. All right.
Oh,
all right.
wow.
Oh.
Yeah, Bolivian. We play mixed doubles, and he's my partner, and he's an amazing guy, and it's a privilege and pleasure to work with him.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's one of them. He's a male who doesn't foster those types of beliefs. So he is the type of person who gives me hope that there are men and there are individuals out there that can see past gender and see past race and see your abilities, see you for who you are, and see you for your capacity. He's one of those people. So when I see him, he gives me hope that change is possible.
Okay. Speaking about that and the last comments both you made, what do we need to get the correct mindset in not only young women of color, but those who are not young women of color for the future? Leah, you're doing it with your kids, but what sort of things need to be done, in both of your opinions, to, it's an overused term, break the cycle?
Leah?
Okay, well, I always have ideas on this subject, but I would say, I think mostly it needs to start with mentorship, and it needs to start with examples that we can point to. I remember being a child in school myself and hearing about all these important leaders, all of, these figureheads, and, people who are doing these things and excelling, and the vast majority of them were men. But the good news is, for our youth now, there are a lot of female examples that we can point to. Not just Oprah. I mean, everybody uses Oprah as a mogul. But there are so many others, like you, Dr. Tachi. She's an academic who is excelling. She's doing all these things on the side. She's a journalist. She does all these things. Me, I'm another example for females who want to come into the foreign policy, national security, international affairs realm. So even though I'm up and coming, I'm not an ambassador. I still have something to offer. And I feel like a lot of people like us are not necessarily exposed to those demographics, those children, those youth groups that would need to see us, meet us, know us, interact with us. And we don't necessarily get to reach them because, life circumstances. But what I wish is that there would be more of that reaching back mentality so that Black professionals or professionals of color remember where they came from and go back there and be present and be in those communities so that those kids see alternatives to just, being an athlete or being, a music industry, star or an actor. Not that anything's wrong with any of those professions, but they also need to see stars in other jobs. Policemen, police officers, I keep saying this is something we talked about 2 conversations ago, that we need more of us in the police force so we can negate some of these stereotypes and all these blatant murders that are happening. But I think what we need to do is find a way to get more of an engagement between Black professionals, professionals of colors that are doing things and excelling in their individual fields, but may not be in the sexy, in the spotlight type of job, interacting with these youth so that they see that they have choices. They see that they can do it, that it's possible. When they see somebody who they know came from just the block over, but now that person's a professor at a university.
Wonderful.
That's a start.
Tachi?
So I really believe that universities need to do a better job of getting involved in the mentorship of young people. Often these universities are in communities, especially if you're in an urban center. You have no excuse not to have any type of mentorship program. None whatsoever. Don't talk to me about funding. None whatsoever. When I was in high school, I was in a program called the STEP program, Science and Technology Enrichment Program. No, I was not in the sciences, but you didn't have to be. And it was during the week, you took basically the classes they asked, all right, what's your schedule like? So I grew up in New York State. We had for math, course 1, course 2, and course 3, which was like mixtures of the different maths. So that's what you took after school. On Monday, you had this. So it was like going to school again, ensuring your success. And this was for students of color. whatever. So you went and you did that. During the summers, oh my goodness, was it fun. So it was, during the day, the different types of things. So you had your maths or whatever. At first, I thought I wanted to be an architect because I took this architecture class that just changed my life. It was amazing. And then, of course, you could take things like tennis and swimming, etc. So you kind of couple it together with the fun things so that students are interested. And this was sponsored by the State University of New York at Buffalo. Excellent program. Excellent program, and it still goes on today.
So, yes.
Yeah, I think more colleges need to, SUNY Buffalo, exactly. So I think more colleges need to take on things like that. In fact, when I was at one university, a colleague and I were thinking about trying to start that, but we never got it off the ground. But I think things like that.
Okay.
I agree, and I want to add one thing, is just that I think we live now in an age where people want instant gratification, and so they want to do things that are fast and things that are easy. But the things that really matter and the things that are worth having take time. And I really want us to, as parents and people who work with youth or work with, students, college age students even, is to explain to them that, some things are going to require work and dedication, and you have to give the time and be dedicated to things to make a change. Like, everyone thinks that they're just going to get rich quick, or they're going to become an Instagram star and then that's going to launch their career. The chances of that happening are really slim to none. So I just really feel like, as elders in our community, we need to remind our children that it's to really get somewhere where they want to be in life, where they can be stable and be successful, it takes time. And they shouldn't have the expectation of immediate gratification. It's not going to get them where they want to be in life. It'll just lead them to a lot of disappointment.
Yeah, they need to know. You can probably count on both hands how many people have become Instagram stars, how many people are YouTube stars, and how many of these people have now gotten in trouble because they don't know a damn thing. They don't know how to handle not only the fame, but they don't have the information they need in order to practice their craft well. They just are popular. There's a difference between knowing your ish and being popular. Huge difference.
Wow. Drop the mic. Drop the mic, Tachi. Drop the mic. So the comments are coming, so I just wanted to get a little bit of a break. Lena Anderson says mental conditioning. Curtis Brooks says, I think black men and women share a lot of the same issues, but we're beating up on each other rather than expelling our energy on dealing with our counterparts and making change where it's needed. Gentleman's here, Divine Right says, yes, mentorship is so key. Say that, Leah. He says, this is Ree, by the way. Do you know Ree?
Oh no, that's one of my best friends from college. That's Serena.
Okay, there you go.
She's also a writer, and she goes by Divine Right is one of her writing names, and I call her Ree.
All right, fan club.
Wow.
Oh, and Dr. Tachi, Ree is.
Oh gosh.
Hello, Soror.
So she's loving. She's giving us the love. Thank you,
Yay.
Ree.
Wow. Okay, so before we go on, I'm going to ask the live audience, do you want these two ladies back? Because if you don't, your wood is wet. We got to get them back on periodically, right? So there's a good question here. Let me just think. TV is asking, and one of the regulars, why do you think black men are afraid of feminism? Or are they? Okay, let it roll.
Yeah. So I think the feminism they know is non-melanated feminism, white feminism. That is the face that feminism has been given in the mainstream media amongst society, and that's what they see. And for them, that's still a form of oppression. It equals oppression. And so I kind of understand, because I'm not 100%, for it either in the form that we see it presented to us. I'm not 100% for it either. So there's that fear, I think, number one. Number two, I think that, again, you've been reared and taught in a society that teaches you were supposed to be the head, you were supposed to be on top. So it's a little bit humiliating when someone who is supposed to be your subordinate then surpasses you. It's problematic. That's the same reason that it's difficult sometimes for black women who are very educated to find a counterpart that is equally yoked. It's difficult. It can be difficult because you feel, and I've been told this before, when I had dated somebody who just felt so insecure, he said, eventually I know you're going to make so much more money than you. I said, and so? But there's that male conditioning of you're supposed to be the one providing. You're supposed to be the one bringing all the bacon and turkey bacon, I don't like pork, turkey bacon and everything home. And you're supposed to be the one providing. And so it makes you feel as if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So feminism, to me or to them, may mean empowering that thought process. And that's something they don't want any part of, especially if they already have a lack of self-esteem.
Yep, exactly. I agree with everything she said. And just adding on to her latter point, I think not only is it a fear of being surpassed, but it's also a fear of being supplanted, in the sense that if now women are suddenly going to be the ones who are the breadwinners and the heads of the household, if it's being based purely on economics, then what role does that leave for them? Mm-hmm. Because they have not been taught how to do the things that women have traditionally done. So, and for whatever reason, society places, in my opinion, lesser value on that role. Being the head of household in the sense of being the main person for child rearing, keeping the house in order, managing the life side of people's lives. So I feel like it's a fear of, all right, well, if Black women are suddenly rising up so high that they're taking our spot, where does that leave us? And further to what Dr. Chachi said, Black men have so little as it is. They're not able to fully exercise their rights, fully exercise their lives. So all they can hold on to is these traditional roles that in today's society don't exist anymore. They really don't apply anymore. So, and as we discussed last time, I feel like there needs to be a whole new looking at what traditional roles mean. Why do breadwinners have to be seen only as male? Or, you know, people who stay at home, it's always the stay at home mom. You hear more and more about stay at home dads, but it's not the norm. But I feel like there needs to be another reckoning in American society, global society, about the fact that anybody can play any role, and it really ultimately just matters what works for you, your family, and in your life. It doesn't make you less of a man if you're the one who's going to be staying at home with the kids because your wife has a high-powered job. You know, she just happens to be the breadwinner in that equation, and you happen to be the one that's taking the lead on the home front. And in my view, there's nothing wrong with that. But for many men, that's not what they're told. They're told that they need to be the ones out bringing in that money, and that's their main responsibility to themselves and to their family, and that the woman has to take care of literally everything else. So I feel like, you know, that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah,
Can I say something really quickly? I'm sorry.
No,
I think also in society, and I shouldn't have apologized. That's something that women tend to do.
Women
I'm not
do that
apologizing. Yeah. So I think that we are so defined by what we do and work, especially in this country, that not to work is equated with just failure. The worst thing ever. Yeah. Failure. Exactly. I'll kind of equate it to this. So I had a full-time, my university didn't have tenure, but I was an associate professor at the university I was at before I left. And people were like, oh, you're leaving? What will you do? And that's partially because we have been reared to be workers. Your worth is nothing without working. Even when you go to college, college doesn't teach you to start a business. It teaches you to be a worker for someone else, which is fine, which is completely fine. But it does not, because where would the society be if you did not have the workers to fulfill you need people at the bottom in order for the people at the top to survive. That's what college teaches you. And so when I was leaving, and people are like, oh, are you leaving for another full-time position? No, I'm not. I'm still teaching, but I don't have that full-time tenure track type position like I did before. And at first I was like, well, you know, kind of, oh no, but, you know, explaining away, well, I still work at I'm like, I don't have to explain a damn thing. I still teach. This is your hang up. That's your problem that you feel you have a full-time tenure track position to be successful in academia. That's why you're not producing anything and you're teaching media, and I don't understand why. So you know, it's that same type of thing. We're so tied to our jobs and so tied to what we're trained to do that for men and for women, if you're not working or you're not connected to work, you feel like a failure.
Exactly.
Okay,
society treats you like one. Also.
Yes.
Let me catch up with comments here. Divine Right says, hey, Leah, oop, oop. And then Curtis Brooks says, would love to have them back. Think TV says, love to have them back. Curtis Brooks says, I don't know what feminism is. Also, Gonzalo says, Right. Fear of not doing what we are expected and taught to do. Expected roles. And Think TV says, I agree. Curtis Brooks says, the fear of not being needed is not neglected to men, but human nature. We all want to be needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I agree with that.
Do you ladies
and we want to feel important.
Oh, do you ladies have time for one more question? Because okay, no problem.
This is great. I could keep going now.
I know, right? you got your sisterhood. All right. Think TV, and you may have answered this already, but you may not have. She wants to know, what is the definition of black feminism? Woo, deep. Who wants to take that? I'm glad I'm hosting.
Can take that one first.
I'm glad I'm hosting.
I was going to defer to you, Laura, but okay.
So I can say, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Leah.
All right. I was just going to say, it's one of those words like, what does black mean? What is whiteness? I don't feel like you can really put a definition on a term like that. But in terms of generic meanings, I think it just means black females advocating for themselves. Whatever it is, the thing that they're advocating for is not as important. It's just that they are taking their own advocacy into their own hands and using their own voices to express what it is they want, without having to qualify, without having to apologize, without having or allowing others to speak for them, which is some of the clash that you see with black feminists and white feminists, is that whole, that sense of empowerment, that sense of voice and who's speaking for whom. But I think my general feeling about what black feminism is just a movement that's for women by black women.
Leah, I'm going to ask you to move over just a little bit because you're a little...
This way?
That's good. Right there is fine. Yes, beautiful.
Okay.
And I have a feeling, even though you're in two different countries, you may shop at the same earring shop. Is that true? Because you both got the hoops. You got the hoops going
all night.
And I was looking at yours. You have the bamboo, the old school bamboo.
Yes, you know that. Got my silver bamboos.
Oh.
Yes. Gots to represent. Even when in Bolivia, I still have to represent. And also, Dr. Tachi, another thing we have in common, I'm from New York. Upstate New York.
Where in upstate New York?
I know.
Where in upstate? Where in upstate New York?
Where in upstate New York? Syracuse.
So I went to Syracuse for college, but my parents still live outside of Albany. And I was born near Cooperstown, New York, in a town called Oneonta.
Yeah, SUNY Oneonta is there.
Yes. SUNY Oneonta is there. So I was born in I was born in New York City, but raised in Oneonta until high school when my parents moved to the Capital District. And then I went to Syracuse for undergrad and then Columbia for graduate school. So I'm like New York to the death.
Wow.
Crazy, Crazy. Yeah, I'm in Bolivia, but I'm still New York. I'm still New York, see?
Yeah, I was, no, that's very New York.
Yeah, bamboos, I mean, come on. Bamboos, that's New York to the death.
That is New York to the core.
So, yes.
Wow.
So anyway, another magical moment.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching this replay for years to come. When I have a little of a dip of a day, I have to watch this because it's just so inspiring to me. We're going to start winding down soon. Hold on a second. Someone said, yes, bamboo earrings, at least 2 pair, Lena says.
Yes, that's
all
my
right.
girl. Yes, LL.
So, ladies, as we wind down this epic conversation, I'd like you to give a message on this subject, women of color, and I want to break it. Actually, I'll save them to last. First of all, I'd like you to give a message about this subject to people who are not of color. What is your message to them about this subject who are not of color? Be
an ally. If you can't be an ally, then get out of the way because you're useless if that's the case. One thing that I've started to discover is that by default, you have always been enough. You have always been superior. And just by default, because that's the way the system is set up. But because you're starting to see us excel, and that's because we're fighting to excel, it calls into question your actual talents and how mediocre you may or may not be. So I say this to you as well. Be excellent. Don't let your fear of mediocrity stop you from doing whatever it is. So because what happens is our excellence starts to call out your mediocrity and then you get upset. So Be solid in your, if you know you're not doing everything you can do to excel, because we have to do 100 times more in order to excel and to prove ourselves. And we're constantly proving ourselves. So which means that we're constantly putting our best foot forward. If you know that you're not doing that and you're coasting, then work on being excellent.
Wow.
Be excellent.
Wow.
Be an ally or get out of the way and be excellent. Don't lean on us and programs and we're getting special privilege. No, because we still have to work 100 times harder. Look at yourself and see what it is you're not doing as to why you're getting where you need to be. I sit down.
Okay, hold on, Dr. Lia, before you start. Lena's classic. She goes, yes, Dr. Tachi, about 6 exclamation points. Yes. And then Lena goes, I almost threw my shoe. Say it.
Yes.
And then Divine Right says, yes. And then Curtis Brooks says, are helping someone else get there.
Exactly.
So, Lena, Elias, go ahead. That was just, woo!
Yeah, there's not much that I could say that would top that, and she said everything that I was going to say. My main point was just to be an ally, but I'll move on because I have another point. The other one is that don't think you know me just because of how I look. Don't make assumptions based on my appearance or my gender. Look at me as a human and don't devalue me or base things just because you knew one black person one time, and so now you think all black people are like that. I feel like, you know, you get to know each other as people because you take the time. Take the time with your black and people of color employees as well. You have no idea where we're coming from. You have no idea what we're thinking, and your assumptions aren't accurate. And so I feel like, you know, one of the things that black women always combat is the stereotypes that we have to overcome. You know, the angry black female, the stern, strong mother figure, you know, mammy, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, those are the stereotypes that white America holds of me. And just by virtue of that, I'm already starting from a position that's several paces behind. So I'm like, look at me the same way you would look at anybody else. Treat me the way you would treat anybody else. Look at me based on my merits, the content of my character, and not how I look, or where you assume what you assume I should be and what I can do based on, you know, things that are really literally trivial and mean nothing. So in addition to being either be an ally, get out the way, or if you're going to stand in my way, then see me. Don't just look at my color and my gender, but see what I bring to the table and then work with me from there.
Yes.
Okay. Next group, men of color.
Yay.
Okay. Who wants to start on this one? Maybe I'll hide for a few minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe step away. No, I'm just kidding.
Men of color. Know this, that for years we have been, let me just talk about black men in general right now. Men of color as a whole, but black men in general. You know that we have always been there for the most part to have your back and to pick things up when things don't go wrong. But please realize that we're human. Just because we have this black girl magic and we're magical does not mean we're sorcerers. Therefore, at some point, we get tired. How long do you want us to continue to march with you when a black male child or a black male, a man, gets shot, but yet when it's us, you turn around and say, well, what were you doing to it becomes our fault. So, you know, at some point you're going to have to realize that support only goes so far. People can only work so much with you. So at some point you have to look introspectively and say, how can I be more supportive? And I've seen you and I've seen you be supportive. What can I do in return? I think that's just a nice thing. Or how can I reciprocate this? Because sometimes there's not enough reciprocation. And that goes all ways, but I'm just specifically talking to, for example, black men now. Try and reciprocate. The things that you see that are done well, that black women do well, she would like that too. Can you reciprocate? Because it just makes us stronger all together.
Yes, yes, and yes again to everything that she said. And also I would say, you know, going back to the very beginning of this conversation where you talked about how some black women were now feeling as though they couldn't be supportive of marches or protests for the senseless killing of Stefan because of the comments that he made on social media. I feel like what I don't understand about black men in particular, men of color, but particularly black men, is why there's this perception that black women are so difficult. Black women are hard-headed. Black women don't listen. They always want to tell me what to do. They're, trying to be the strong black woman all the time. And so I need someone who's more subservient, someone who acts more like a lady who's going to defer to me, which is what I hear sometimes from black men when they try to excuse away why they, want to date out of their race, which I have no problems with, but do it for the right reasons. Do it because you love somebody, not because you think black women are too difficult or whatever. I feel like that perception needs to go away, because a black woman wasn't too difficult when she raised you, when she had you, when she gave you everything that she did, when she sacrificed for you, like generations of black women have been doing for black men forever. So why suddenly now in this day and age is it any different? And it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about roles and the roles that society tells black men that they need to fulfill, which is to be the head of the household. They need to be the boss. So if their position or their point of view is questioned by black women, all of a sudden black women are now demonized as being too difficult, too hard-headed, too strong, maybe too much of an equal. And so they look for reasons to discount black women. That needs to stop, because we're already diffuse as it is in terms of, we're not a monolith. Everyone says black people are not a monolith. That's true. Right. But we're also not enough together to really get the kind of reform and results that we want. When we do these marches, I'm kind of at the point when I'm like, what's the point? Nothing is going to change. Where we need to do this coming together is in the ballot box, writing legislation, running for office ourselves, becoming police officers ourselves. But black men are looking to black women to support them as they pursue those things. But where is the black male support when females are doing those things? And that's what Dr. Tashi was just saying. So my main message to black men is get over yourselves. It's a new age. Black women are not being hard-headed. Black women are doing what they need to do to survive, and you need to recognize that. And you are part of the reason why black women act the way that they do. So take responsibility for your part in it.
Woo! Move over again, Leah, a little bit. Okay, better. All right. So there's a whole pile of conversation points I'm gonna leave until we finish off. So my final ask from both of you is your message to women that are in the same demo as you, and then also women of color in the same demo as each of you, and then younger women of color. So messages for each one of those, and we will wind it out.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, women that are in the for women that are in the same demographic and women that are younger, two things. I would say know your worth and know your power, because you are definitely worthy and definitely powerful, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And two, can you not make it difficult for other women because sometimes we are our own worst enemies.
All the time.
And I'll say this in this sense. So we're not a monolith, as we just said, as black people or as black men or women. So there are all sorts of black women that are out there. But I think you have to, unfortunately, because of who we are, when you walk out there, you are a representative of all of us. And I'll be damned if you mess up my reputation because of how you want to act. So I'll say, stop being selfish. Simply because you're a different type of black woman and this is how you want to act, think about the fact that what you do affects all of us. Is it right? No. Is it fair? No. Oh, well, that's what it is. So you really have to be your sister's keeper. So be cognizant of what you do. Be careful in what you do, because you want to act like an orangutan walking down the street, then I have to put up with at work that view of orangutan being put on me, if that makes any sense. So be cautious in your actions, because it affects everyone. Can you act right, basically?
Yes, I agree with everything that she just said, and I would add, for women in my demographic, remember the slings and arrows that were thrown at you when you were up and coming, to the point where you are in your careers now, and try to allow those that are coming behind us to avoid those same slings and arrows. Let them learn from your experience, so that even though inevitably they're going to fall into traps and pitfalls, it doesn't have to be the same ones that you made. Don't feel threatened by other people coming up the chain. You should feel joy by it, because there was a day when ain't none of us going to be on that chain. And now, because we're on the chain, you need to look back and make sure that more of us get on it and pull them up. Don't be afraid to do it. It doesn't diminish you. It doesn't take anything away from you. As Dr. Tachi said earlier about terms of dealing with white mediocrity, you need to be excellent as well. If you're excellent, you have nothing to worry about. What somebody else is doing isn't going to affect you and your potential. So don't be afraid to help out those that are coming behind you, because if we don't help them, they're not going to rise to the levels that we all claim we want to see ourselves in. So that's what I would say to women in my current demo, because we're not yet in the most senior positions, but we're certainly safely in the mid-level. So we are in a position of authority looking to rise to the top. And there are young eyes looking at us to see what to do and how to do it. And so do the right thing. For young females, I would say respect your elders, know who has come before. And like Dr. Tachi said, and I'm vulgarly, don't show your ass. People have done a lot of work. People have literally fought and died to get to where we are now. And there is still a lot of work to be done. And that work is going to fall to you. But if you continue to do things that will perpetuate stereotypes, it affects all of us. It affects all of our progress. And we go back to square one and we have to start fighting the same fight we've already been fighting for years. So comport yourselves in the best way possible, because unfortunately, as Dr. Tachi also said, one of us represents all of us. It's just the way it is in the working world. It might be different when you're young, in school, whatever, find yourself, explore, do all those things. But when you get into the workplace, when what you say and what you do reflects on everybody. And I would also like to encourage you, though, to not hide. Don't cower. Be yourself. Wear your natural hair. Wear what you want. Wear ethnic prints. Do what you feel represents who you are, because that needs to be normalized. And if we hide those things and try to go along with what's already been socialized, we're just playing into the same stereotypes and perpetuating the same myths that have always been going on. So if you want to wear locks, you want to wear braids, you want to wear afro, you want to wear your hair permed, whatever, do it, because that doesn't mean, it has literally nothing to do with your work ethic and what you can bring to the table. But just remember to always carry yourself in a way that will perpetuate positive stereotypes of all of us and not the negative ones. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Shine, let your black girl magic shine. Do you, because what we do is a great thing and people are just now recognizing it and they're afraid of it. But what we need to do is to keep on doing it so that it becomes more accepted. So when we excel and when we all rise to the top, it's not a surprise.
Wow. Whew. Gosh, I have to get my oxygen back.
Don't come to Bolivia. Don't come to the podcast.
Okay, all right. All right. Ladies, I have to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time to make this. You guys are out of bounds in a good way. You are out of bounds. You are amazing. Just want to read some of the final comments here. Lena Anderson, amen. Gonzalo, awesome show. I'm a first timer here, but I'll be back. MC Curtis, geez, this is epic. I can appreciate that. Tachi, Curtis says, Lena, amazing show. Divine Right, support goes both ways. Let's hold each other up. Lena says, black women didn't just raise black men. Historically, they raised white children as well.
Exactly.
Divine Right, I'm going to share this particular show with my 25-year-old goddaughter. She needs to hear this and would be encouraged and feel empowered. Excellent show.
Oh, good.
Curtis Brooks, I think television has played a major role in how we see each other and has ultimately shaped our perception. Whites have long controlled the narrative and how we see each other.
Exactly.
And Divine Right says,
and how we see ourselves.
Yes. Lena says exactly. Lena says teach. And Divine Right with the last comment says, drop the mic. So, ladies, before we let you go, if you're comfortable, can you please give your contact information so these people can keep in touch? Many of them already are, but I hope more do. The ones watching live and on the replay. Leah first.
Okay, so if you want to keep in touch with me, there are several ways that you can do it. You can look for me on my blog, which is liaworldtraveler.com, and it's LIA worldtraveler.com. You can find me on Facebook under the same name, liaworldtraveler.com. I'm on Instagram as Leah World Traveler. I'm on Twitter as Leah World Travels. That's the only difference. But basically, if you put in Google Leah World Traveler, you're going to find me. And you can also find me on LinkedIn under my name, Leah Miller. I post everything across social media platforms. So if you just go to one, you'll have access to them all. And I really hope to interact and engage with all of you.
Tachi.
So you can find me. I'm basically at Tachiada everywhere, TACHIADA. So I'm on Twitter at Tachiada. I'm on Periscope at Tachiada. You can find me. I'm Dr._Tachi on Instagram. And my show is Mediascope. So Is it okay for me to say that?
Come on. Okay. Don't I say it enough on your show? So come on.
So Mediascope, I talk all about media tech and pop culture every Wednesday at 5 p.m. We do the pre-show, the pre-party on Instagram Live. Then we move over to Facebook Live and Periscope simultaneously. MC Curtis is my producer, and it is the livest live stream on media, tech, and pop culture, 6 p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday.
You know why I'm glad you said that?
Sir?
The reason why is because I usually have to say it because you forget to say it.
I do forget.
No problem. Myself, I don't want to make it too long here, so I'm going to keep it short this time. If you want to catch all my epic conversations, audio-wise, video-wise, just go to drvibeshow.com. I can list all the platforms that I'm on, but this has been a long enough conversation, so I don't want to make it too much longer. Though I am a brand ambassador for the only online magazine dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. That is Cuisine Noir Magazine. The website is cuisinenoirmag.com. I'm a certified empowerment coach, president, and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. If you'd like a complimentary session, touch base with me, email dr.vibe@drvibeshow.com, Twitter @drvibeshow, or you can go to my website, click on Contact Dr. Vibe. Everything there. What else am I going to mention? You know what? The other thing.
To the next show that we're going to be on.
Yeah, well, that's between you two ladies. One other thing I will mention. I am on live every Friday morning at 7:25 a.m. Eastern Time on WURD, Pennsylvania's largest publicly owned black radio station. They are on AM and FM radio in the Philadelphia area, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Then they are online via their apps, via the Google Store and the Apple Store, and also the Tuned In Radio app. I'm part of a panel. We talk about the week that was, stories that did make the news and stories that didn't, that should have made the news. And the hosts are Ike Raw, yes, Ike Raw, and Christopher Flood, the drummer Norris. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. Go to my website. You can catch it. 3 last things I will say, well, 4. Thanks to everyone who stayed tonight. And a lot of people stayed for the whole conversation. So I hope I can list you all roll call. Lena, MC Curtis, Divine Right, Think TV. I'm going to get his name. Don't worry. I'm going to find it because he's going to get mad at me. Gonzalo.
Yes.
And there were some others who didn't identify themselves. No problem. Thanks for dropping by. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's over 400 conversations if you want to check them out. That's it. So 3 last things. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. And piggybacking on what these ladies closed off with, block assumptions.
Yes.
So God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and from my heritage, we like to say, walk good. We'll catch you soon. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Bye.